Good morning, or whenever you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening. I'm glad to have you here today. It's a really important day that I want to talk about and celebrate. First of all, one of my staff, Elizabeth, gave me this great bumper sticker. My new pickup is getting bumper stickered because my old pickup had lots of bumper stickers with a message. This one is equality, which I really love because it brings in kind of the rainbow triangle, the otherly abled, it brings in the women's movement and the Black Lives movement. So that will soon be on my truck, and thank you, Elizabeth. Today, though, is an incredibly important day. So we're filming this on Thursday. And today, President Biden is introducing a bill to commemorate Juneteenth Day, to make Juneteenth Day a national holiday. And that's really what I want to talk about today. So Juneteenth Day is this Saturday, or this past Saturday if you're watching this on Monday, June 19th. Juneteenth is sometimes called National Independence Day, it's called Freedom Day, it's called Jubilee Day, it's called Liberation Day, it's also called Emancipation Day. So it has lots of different names. But it's a holiday in particular that celebrates the emancipation of African Americans who have been enslaved in the United States. Now let me share a little bit something about this particular holiday, and as it becomes a national holiday, I'm sure that all of us will understand more about this holiday. But this holiday kind of reminds us, Juneteenth reminds us that change takes time. That Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But sometimes it takes time to bend toward justice. But as each of us in our own way, in our own particular places and spaces, as we work for change, it's kind of like a mosaic, right, or a puzzle. And we can all be stronger together. And speaking of change and speaking of emancipation, we have a family from Los Angeles here for a family vacation with purpose. Who knew? What a great thing to do, right? This family is from the Los Angeles Filipino American United Church of Christ. And they're here for the week, kind of a powerhouse mom and dad and daughter. The daughter is in her first year of college. And what they did this week is they laid sod. They planted shrubs. They worked at the two homes up in North Gulfport. I think today they're going to be taking out a tub and putting in some tile. And they've also been experiencing all the amazing work that we do. They've interacted with our case managers and with the rest of our staff here. And they've really had a great kind of vacation with purpose, and I honor them for traveling all the way by car, actually a Jeep Wrangler, from Los Angeles all the way here. I think they said it was about 20 hours to Back Bay Mission on the coast. But they're here also, I think, at a really, really critical time, because they were talking about their church back in Los Angeles, their Filipino American United Church of Christ, that they said is a difficult time with change. That the people aren't necessarily really willing to change and sometimes address the issues of the people that are in their neighborhood. And that's kind of what I see Juneteenth about, because Juneteenth was actually 3 years after the official Emancipation Proclamation of President Abraham Lincoln. So it took Texas a bit more time to change, right? It took Texas longer to abolish slavery in their state, as it took other states longer too. And I think in a sense today, if you've read Michelle Alexander's book, she talks about kind of a new slavery, right? That's the young black men that are imprisoned in our prison system. She talks in that book a bit about immigrants or migrants that are kind of our new slave class in this country. And so there's some things I'd like you to consider and maybe pick up a copy of Michelle Alexander's book. But in 1862, President Lincoln basically said we're going to abolish slavery, right, in every state in the Union. But it really didn't happen. Texas was kind of the last holdout. And so in 1866, right, they actually made the announcement, the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas. And so we're grateful that sometimes change takes time, but we're also grateful for the shoulders of those individuals who were a part of the emancipation, that we get to stand on their shoulders, right, and continue to do that good work of justice and liberation and emancipation. So today, I would encourage you I hope you did take advantage of some of those celebrations for Juneteenth in your neighborhood, in your city, the place where you live. Oftentimes there's singing, there's bands, there's food, there's parties, there are family reunions, there are sometimes historical reenactments. But to consider celebrating this day, often Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation is read. And I want to share just a little bit of that Emancipation Proclamation in celebration today, hopefully, of Juneteenth Day becoming a national holiday. I also want to remind us that United Church of Christ is deeply connected to Back Bay Mission. And the United Church of Christ, back in the day, we were abolitionists. Our members were abolitionists, our clergy were abolitionists. We were a part of the Amistad Revolt. We were a part of the Civil Rights Movement in the 50s and the 60s. We've been involved in the marriage equality movement. We've been involved in the equality movements for women and for women's rights. And we continue to be a part of what we call the social gospel, which is not just like an internal spiritual conversion, but an external or social reform. So here's what I would say is the very most important paragraph of Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. He said, and I quote, "Whereas on the 22nd day of September in the year of our Lord 1862, a proclamation was issued by the President of the United States containing, among other things, the following, to wit, that on the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforward and forever free. And the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will not do no acts or acts to repress such persons or any of them in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom." Liberation, freedom, liberty. We are free at last is how MLK ends his I Have a Dream speech. I encouraged the staff here at Back Bay this past week as we did some dreaming and visioning for Back Bay Mission to reread the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King, which concludes with those words, free, free, free at last. Fannie Lou Hamer, who's a incredible civil rights figure from the 50s and the 60s, she delivered a speech at the founding of the National Women's Political Caucus in Washington, D.C. in 1971. And she made this famous statement. She says, "Nobody's free until everybody's free." And I'd like us to keep that in mind, especially as we have celebrated Juneteenth, as we're celebrating Pride Month, as we celebrate freedom for everybody, right? And here at Back Bay Mission, it's really about freedom for people who are living in poverty, for people who are unsheltered. It's about freedom for those who come down here to do these mission trips and have their lives changed. This family from Los Angeles, they're never going to be the same because of the experiences they've had here at Back Bay Mission. And it really brings us kind of a sense of personal freedom, a sense of liberation, that we free our minds and our hearts and our actions, right, to be the best selves that we can be. I think Hammer was one of the greatest civil rights heroes who we don't really sing her praises enough. She had this incredibly deep devotion to social programs for the poor, and she had a really highly sophisticated understanding of the political machine. She took on a president. She served her community with groundbreaking economic social reform programs, and ultimately, she, almost single-handedly, really changed Mississippi politics forever. She was one amazing woman. And the beautiful thing about her, and if you know anything about several other activists, right, oftentimes they kind of grew up in really, really humble roots. Her family spent decades picking cotton as sharecroppers on a plantation in Sunflower County, Mississippi. And you think of Oprah, actually, who also grew up here in Mississippi in a very impoverished family, but she grew up to be really a voice for equity and a voice for justice. And Hammer got very involved in civil rights and started that work in the 1940s, even before the 50s and the 60s. And her family was certainly not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but they were incredible hard workers here in the state of Mississippi. So as we've celebrated this national holiday of Juneteenth, you know, holidays are kind of just for a day. But I'm hoping that all of us can celebrate these holidays all throughout the year. That we realize we're standing on the shoulders of individuals like Fannie Lou Hamer, on the shoulders of even Oprah, right, who has a really strong voice in our community, standing on the shoulders of President Lincoln and Martin Luther King. We're standing on the shoulders of all of our foremothers and forefathers who fought for freedom and fought for justice, and really fought to bring freedom to those living in oppression and those living on the margins. And so today, as I close, I want to encourage you to think back to Juneteenth Day, Saturday, right? To look forward to many more Juneteenths as we celebrate that this has become a national holiday. Because right now we need some really continued positive movement forward, right? Change comes slow. But I think at least today, as our president on this Thursday introduces a bill to make Juneteenth Day a national holiday, I think that's some incredible movement, some incredible change in our country. That we acknowledge that for some it takes time. And that's really important for all of us, right? Because we're all on the journey. We're all growing. We're all changing. We're all in the process of becoming no matter who or what we are. But keep your mind open. Keep your mind free. Keep your mind in a place that it's willing to be liberated from old patterns and old thoughts and old ways, and to live into a new way of being. And that's what we're about here at Back Bay. We're an incredibly nimble organization. We move to meet the needs of the people in our culture and our society, and that's really, really important for us. And so celebrate with us today. Celebrate with us liberation and freedom and equality and Juneteenth and Black history and queer lives and women's rights, right? And women finally getting a equitable pay for equitable jobs, for similar jobs. But that's kind of what we're about. So let's do that work together. Let's go out and make some really good trouble, in the words of John. Peace and joy to you today. I hope you're feeling hopeful, and that you're feeling that yes, you can be a part of the change that you want to see in the world. So thanks for joining me.